Not sure what to do in Ottawa tonight? Not even sure where to start looking? I got a website for you. Go to Ottawagigs.ca. Whether you're looking for a band, whether you're looking for an artist, whether you don't know what you're looking for. Maybe some live music, or just a fun night out on the town. Start with Ottawagigs.ca and find everything you need. Bands, artists, venues, dates, times, even door covers. It's really all at your fingertips on an easy-to-use website. Ottawagigs.ca. Go discover the amazing talent, the amazing venues, the amazing nightlife that Ottawa has to offer. Start your evening on Ottawagigs.ca. It's your guide to the gig.
You've got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker.
Born and raised in South Bay, lower class punk ass, I was Northwood grade. I had it made. Spent my nights drinking with my mates. Just a short bus ride up to PA. Red River Raid. Then I hit the wall and I knew I had to bounce. They still say that 19 years ago, hell, I got the hell out. From time to time you may see me hanging around. Now I feel like a stranger in this town. Crocs and rolls is where I learned to play. Westman Tavern's where I learned to walk.
Hey, we're back. This is Mike. This is Ego and Vice, episode 144. As promised in the intro, sitting in Southwood Studio, I have Will Stockdale, the proprietor, the creator, the overlord of Ottawagigs.ca. How are you, Will?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me down to the studio.
Yeah, thank you for coming. We touched base. I think you actually reached out to me.
Yeah, I think I did.
And because, well, Ego and Vice has always been local music. So when you reached out to me, you complimented me. It was nice words. I always like to hear them. But you said, I'd like to know more about the podcast. Because with Ottawa Gigs, which we're going to talk about in full, it's kind of also helping the Ottawa music scene. What is Ottawa Gigs? Where did this come from? Like, who are you? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll tell a bit of the story. Yeah, I'm glad you replied to my message. Like, flattery will get you everywhere, I find, usually. So, so Ottawa Gigs, as people listening to this can probably tell, I'm not from around here. So that's the story of Ottawa Gigs kind of starts in the UK.
Okay.
Maybe slightly counterintuitively. So I moved to Ottawa 5 years ago now. Huge music fan, like back in the UK. I was a teenager during that kind of golden era of indie rock. So, you know, Arctic Monkeys, Strokes, Franz Ferdinand, all that kind of good stuff. And have been, you know, enthralled with that and playing guitar pretty badly ever since that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But when I moved to Ottawa, didn't immediately kind of get into the scene. You know, lots of things to do when you move to a new country.
For sure.
Then we had the pandemic. And so coming out of that in early 2023 was kind of the moment where kind of that new year I was like, right, I have not been seeing enough live music in this country. Like, this is something I'm going to try and do this year. And so that was the moment where kind of for the first time, really, I stepped up to Google and was like, what's on in Ottawa in terms of live music?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the point where I found, as I think thousands of Ottawans also have, that when you try and do that, or when you did try and do that,
Right.
at that moment in time, it wasn't really that easy to answer that question.
No.
You know, you had to... It was pretty clear, obviously, there wasn't any kind of centralized service that would help me answer that question, and you were having to go and like look at every venue's website, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it was, to find that information.
Right.
But I was still like, this is all good. I'm still going to do this. I'm going to every week, every fortnight, I'll check all the listings. I'll see if there's something I want to go see because I really want to do this.
Cool.
And then the coincidence was just that was a moment in my work life where I was between two companies. So I was just moving on from the previous company that I started and thinking about starting my next one. And I knew how to build websites. And so I was like, actually, if I'm doing all this research anyway and gathering all this information, like, why not just publish it somewhere? Because I'm sure there's other Ottawans who are having the same problem. So
of course.
So that's where it started.
Of course. Like, I've been in Ottawa for 25 years, and when I first came here, we used to have a paper. It was like a fanzine, not a fanzine, but just almost like a local DIY kind of free paper. It was called the Exclaim, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you opened it up, and in the very back of the paper, it had, this is like 1998, 9 type of thing. So the phones, like cell phones, weren't on your hip back then. They were, but they were very big, and they didn't have like what they do today. But you'd go to the back of the paper, and they'd have the show listings for Ottawa, but it would only be for the weekend, maybe 4 days or something like that. There might have some advanced booking in that, but that's what I used to like go to all the time. And over the course of being in Ottawa, venues come and venues go, and then the internet came, and like you said, and it really is hard to know exactly what is going on. So when I was going through Ottawagigs.ca, the actual website, it's super like intuitive, and it's super helpful, and it's broken down into all categories. What kind of background do you have in like IT or something? Like, are you you said you know how to build websites? So.
Yeah. But then that's the kind of dirty secret Ottawa Gigs, and was the interesting thing in building it is that I don't know how to code. Like, I know how to, for the previous business that I ran also ran our marketing side of the business and had to learn how to build websites for that. But all the technology that sits underneath Ottawa Gigs requires like some knowledge and some familiarity with different tools to stitch them together. That part of working out that architecture was slightly complex, but generally speaking, it's something that others who are that way inclined could also been working on.
And how many versions have there been? Has it always been just this one that I'm looking at here?
No, there's been 2 versions. Yeah. So what you're looking at now is the kind of new, exciting, like full fat version, which I was happy to relaunch, I think in May. May, June, July, early this year. Because when I first started out with it, again, the hypothesis was there's probably a few other Ottawans out there who would appreciate something like this, but I didn't know that. You know, you kind of, so you don't want to build something too complicated. And back then I had to collect all the data myself. So
that was my next question: is how do you do it? Like, how do you, like, as we were just talking in our previous conversation, there's like trying to find who's playing and where they're playing and what's going on. Like, where do you start? Yeah.
And that was I think that's the key problem which has stopped others from creating something like this before. And, part of the interesting thing about working on this project is I'm coming to it, pretty humble that I'm reasonably new to this scene, right? That's actually why I reached out to you and why I reached out to others who've, been living here much longer, know the scene much better, kind of asking, what people must, I know this is not an original idea. People have tried this before. Like, what have people tried before? Like, why didn't it work? Like, what were some of the issues? Because actually, I'd love not only to build something, but something that is sustainable and sticks around.
Becomes the staple, or that's something you lean on, right? Which is like, oh, just check.
Yeah, because there's clearly demand for it, both from like music fans, but also venues. When you speak to venues, it's a key thing. As you said, we used to have the papers and those things which hosted those kinds of listings. Now we don't, and now we don't have those. There is a gap here. Interestingly, I had a couple of conversations with folks who basically said, when I introduced myself, said, hey, I'm thinking of building this, and you've been in the scene for a while, and kind of looked to me and were like, we've seen you before, like, I
was gonna say too. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. So I'm aware it's not a new idea. It's been tried before, and the main hurdle that it seems is hard to get over is, as you said, is the data, and it's aggregating all that information. It's just so time consuming to do.
Yeah, that's for sure. But it's okay. It may have been done before, but I find as technology gets better, everything gets more simplified, everything gets easier, more information. It's easier to find something. Even like on a computer nowadays, or on your phone, you have an app. Do you have an app for this?
No, not yet.
Oh, that'd be a good one though. Yeah. Anyway, so people can find it, and being recognized, like, did you go see a lot of shows? Do you go see a lot of shows? Is like, why this in particular? I know you're a music fan, and like you said, you're only been in Ottawa like 5 years. Like, is it a lot of work? Like, what is the payoff? Is it just a hobby, or you just love doing it, or like how does it work for you?
Yeah, good question. I'll kind of fold that into just kind of continuing the story from like the first version to the second version,
Sure.
and how things change over that period. So in the first instance, the payoff was really kind of personal. It was, I'm doing this research anyway because I want to go see more shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is something which I know I will use and will help me find stuff which I otherwise wouldn't be finding. And if 10, 20, 100 other people on, r/Ottawa Music or whatever will also dig it and start using it, that'd be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was kind of the limit of the ambition at the start. And so the first version of the site had it was a pretty basic website and involved me going and doing probably 4 hours of kind of copying and pasting essentially every week.
Right.
And all that got me to was the next 2 weeks of shows on the site. That's all.
Because they just keep coming.
They just keep coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I think will surprise not necessarily folks who are familiar with the scene, but anyone who's not. Just the number of shows that are on in Ottawa, and the number of great shows that are on Ottawa. I'm sure we're going to do some cheerleading later.
And I guess you have to stay with them real time, because what if something gets canceled?
Yeah,
like you have to go in. Okay.
Yeah,
it's not like once you put it in, it's not etched in stone. Like, you still have to kind of, in that small chunk of time, you still have to
keep a bit of an eye on
observant.
it.
Yeah. Sure.
So that was the first version. 4 hours a week, copying and pasting. 2 hours of the next 2 weeks of shows, and that did me for kind of a year. But what that year showed was that this is something that people really wanted. Even just providing people with the next 2 weeks was significantly better than the existing options they had for answering that question of like, what am I going to do? Particularly because, as you mentioned, the things I think that people appreciated were the kind of the neighborhood and genre categorization. Like, I think a lot of listings that people have also seen, it's like, well, I can tell there's lots on, but these are just names on a page. Like, I don't have any way, unless I know these acts already, like, I don't have any way of wondering whether this is something I actually want to go see. So that was the first year. I saw more shows. Other people enjoyed the site. It was good. Kind of traffic is, going along, slowly increasing. But the game change has been, as I said, 2 or 3 months ago, I had a decision to make. It's like, actually, this is good, but this is actually not the product that people really want. Like, actually, I did a big feedback survey with all my users and email subscribers, and unsurprisingly, when you ask people like, well, what else would you want on for this site? And people said, actually, I'd like all the shows, please. Unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Could you,
that's what they're looking for, I
not
guess,
the next 2 weeks, could you do all the shows? I'm like, I know it's what I would want as well. Could you do all the shows? And actually, the other thing we'd really appreciate is in your email newsletter, rather than just being, hey, this is what's coming this week. Actually, I'd love to know what's new, like what's been announced in the past week, so I can plan ahead, get tickets, or that kind of thing. So I knew that if I wanted to do it to carry on the site, that's what it kind of needed to be. And the only way it could be that was not me manually collecting that. It has to be automated at that point. So that was the big shift this year, which has been really exciting and is actually kind of a rare instance, I think, of AI actually helping the arts scene, which I don't think is...
AI, our friend AI.
Yeah,
right?
which is not necessarily something that happens. But to your point, actually, technology has really helped this come into being in a way that I think we couldn't have done kind of a year or two ago.
No, of course not.
So yeah, that's what's going on at the moment. It's mostly fully automated. There's lots of robots helping me out. They need some supervision. They kind of act as kind of unruly interns and return some pretty poor results a lot of the time. But most of the time they do a pretty good job of.
That's crazy,
making
right?
it happen.
That's crazy. It's like. You said you had to research it yourself. You had to go out and find it. You had to look in that. Now that you have AI doing it, like, do they just gather the information when you say what's playing this and that, blah blah blah, and you put in like the things, or do you have to like manually like enter all the data in here, or does it all just does it for you?
No, there's still quite a lot of work setting it all up. So I think one of the other reasons I think Ottawa Gigs has worked is that from the start, I always knew that I was going to have to get the bulk of the information. I think previous services like this have relied or tried to rely on submissions from artists or venues. Hey, I've got a show, and rely on them to let the listing know that something's happening.
For sure.
Actually, artists and venue owners have enough to be doing without having to like figure out which of the 12 event calendars in town, like actually the ones that they should submit their shows to, and is going to mean people, are aware of it and buy tickets and so on.
Yeah.
So from the start, the idea was always, okay, well, I'm going to have to go get this data. Like, I'm going to go to venue websites, go to venue resources, and retrieve it and centralize it. And so that's what essentially the robots are doing. Is I'm setting up particular scrapers for each venue, which all has to be customized in the first instance, but then afterwards works pretty well, and saying, hey, okay, we want to set up, live on Elgin on the site. This is where they hold all their web information. This is how we're going to work to bring it in and format it in a way which brings it into what you see on the site there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very, very cool. With the podcast, one of the things that I really like doing is talking to people, and that's kind of that's the satisfying part for me. Like, once you have this all, has anyone ever, like you said that you'd been noticed, like you're the Ottawa Gigs guy.
Yeah. Does
anyone ever like call you up or send you an email and say, hey, you're doing a great job, all that kind of thing? Are you visible that way? Like you're reachable?
Yeah. So I'm very happy to say, like, Will at Ottawagigs.ca, if anyone wants to reach out to talk about the site, like give any feedback or share any ideas. It is, I think, as it says on the homepage, I see it very much as a community project. Like, it's something which, as I understand it, like really is starting to benefit the local music scene, and I
can't see how it couldn't.
And I want to build it out, like, with the input of others who want to get involved. So I mean, considering where we are now, you talked about where you get satisfaction from. I think there's been kind of a couple of things. So firstly, like, you see the traffic going up. I mean, we have like 3,000 people a month use the site now.
Wow.
And what's really cool is you see, like, I can't track obviously kind of end ticket purchases, but what I can track is when someone on an individual show page says, hey, like, I'm interested in tickets, and then I take them to wherever, like, the individual show is. And just in the last month, in September alone, that happened 350 times on the site. So that's 350 folks who potentially went and bought a ticket to a show in Ottawa, which showed very high intent to do so, who otherwise, like,
probably wouldn't have.
Probably
couldn't find it, or wouldn't even know it would have came and went.
Yeah. And that's really satisfying to see that money is likely, going back into the local.
You're making a difference. Absolutely. And you're making things easier for people, because people are, genuinely pretty lazy, and they don't want, should I look for this band? Whatever, it's fine. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's an amazing idea. I know music. I don't know much about websites. Everything I've done with Ego and Vice, everything I've done is just kind of pieced together. I'm not a professional journalist, so if I'm not asking you like the hard-hitting website questions that you were expecting, like if you want to talk about songwriting, let's go. This I'm learning, so
yeah,
it's great.
No, whatever you want.
It's great to know.
I said, hey, I've been wandering around the crowd trying to see your face. Do we see a spilled drinks, cigarettes, and lack of grace? 'Cause it's true, I do anything just to feel your embrace. But you know, this life's a race. You've been running circles round my mind 'cause you love the chase. And even though I struggle to catch up, we'll keep the pace. 'Cause holding on by a lace, there's no second place if you don't sing the same way. Days, maybe weeks or years. Oh, I just hesitate. There's nothing worse than being left without a trace. Looking for anything 'cause you know face if you don't say my name. My name. My name. Wish that I could wrap my head bound to never fade away, but the silence fills me up instead, seems to always stay, and knocks like a reminder, like clockwork ticking every day. Now that you don't say my name. My name. My name. Say my name. My name. My name.
So, why did you come to Ottawa?
For love. Yeah.
The age-old,
Yeah.
the age-old reasons.
Say, feels like a typical Ottawa immigrant story from lots of people who I seem to meet around.
Yeah,
seem to meet around town.
That happens.
Yeah.
Where were you from?
I am from a pretty small town just south of Manchester in the UK. So it's a small little town called Macclesfield, although has a very particular musical heritage. Like basically the only thing it is famous for but it's a good one, is the lead singer of Joy Division. Is from there. There is a really excellent mural there. We then disgraced ourselves as a town by someone then stole his gravestone a few years ago. But in general, it's yeah.
How do you feel about New Order?
I don't have that strong opinions about New Order.
Okay.
I kind of
I know a lot of Joy Division fans shit on New Order because isn't that not how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I grew up with New Order. I love New Order.
Yeah.
I found Joy Division after New Order.
I mean, I can see, why it's, you might want to hold some of those positions, and the Joy Division records are, incredibly meaningful to lots of people, but then it's quite hard to shit on anyone who wrote Blue Monday. So, you've got to yeah.
For love, I'm not from Ottawa either. I'm actually from I'm from Thunder Bay.
Okay.
Still in Canada.
Yeah.
I didn't come for love though. I came because my drummer was here. My drummer came here for school.
Love of a kind.
So I kind of came. Yeah, that's right. I guess so. Love described in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't love him anymore though. I'm very upset with him now. But that's a whole other podcast.
Sorry to hear that.
Oh, it's bandmates. It's relationships. It's the way it goes.
Yeah.
It was 25 years ago, right? Anyway, so history of music. Where did you discover music? Like, there must be a rich in Manchester.
Yeah,
must be a rich history of music in that area.
Oh, we.
Can you recall like your early memories of music and when it first started kind of changing or moving you?
Yeah, actually, it's so my dad was a big 60s 70s rock guy, so there was always a lot of Beatles, Zeppelin, kind of Floyd hanging around, and that led to me, one of my actually earliest school memories is trying to get the rest of my school bus to sing Baby You Can Drive My Car, which I think I didn't know at the time was like a very odd thing for like a 6-year-old probably to try and do with their classmates. But I think showed probably that at least some of that had been, internalized.
Yeah, well, it could have been worse. You couldn't be getting them to sing something that wasn't a classic.
That's true, exactly, internalized at that point. But then I think, but also there was kind of, also my parents, my mum as well, there's a lot of classical music, there's a lot of that going on. So actually, the first album that I ever bought, I think was, classic. As soon as you get a bit of money and you're rebelling a little against where your parents came from, was Americana by The Offspring. Was the first record that I bought. I just thought that was like my hover. I'm not even going to think how old I was at the time, but just thought that was incredible and just the complete antithesis, I think, of everything that I was listening to at home.
As a younger person discovering music, how much influence did the North American marketing of the bands and rock and roll affect you there as it did where you were affected us, like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and stuff? Like, what do you remember that came from America? Like,
yeah, it's a good point. So I ended up talking about this a lot with a friend of mine in high school who was American, and he came over with a bunch of stuff which just didn't resonate as much. In particular, the kind of post grunge, like new metal stuff. Like, we got Limp Bizkit as kids, but none of the like Seethers and all that kind of stuff, which was Stained and all those things which were kind of going on. Like that never felt like it kind of came over in the same way that things were happening over on this side of the pond. Funnily enough, probably, I don't know their name, but a key influence on my musical development as a kid and when I was growing up was back when my parents, we actually lived like on the outskirts of this town. Like they never really showed much interest in technology, so our internet at home was absolutely terrible. So actually the easiest way to get music was actually the local library had a CD collection. Cool. And you kind of go down, and somehow in this like library in the small town in the north of England, whoever was the purchaser for that CD section, they don't know the debt that I owe them. Like anytime anything new would come out, like it was in there, like, and I could go get it. And not just that, like the back catalog was amazing.
Wow.
And it felt very odd as whatever age I was, like renting Nevermind the Bollocks from like the local library. But that was what enabled me to actually listen to a lot of the stuff which I otherwise would probably have struggled to get hold of.
I'm sure that record's in a museum now somewhere.
Yeah.
Or at least a Hall of Fame. Library's not a huge stretch, but back then, sure.
Yeah, but you're right. And then from then on, like as you become more aware, you realize like particularly the great Manchester heritage, and there's bands which I think you just listen to in the genes if you're from Manchester. If you know, listen to the Smiths and the Stone Roses, even before you get to Oasis and everything else. So,
poor sad Morrissey.
Very.
What was the very first Canadian band you remember knowing of?
The very first Canadian
artist.
Canadian artist. It's fun. Like, so something I became aware of later on is the amount of Canadian music. But at the time when you were listening to it in the UK, you had no awareness that these folks were Canadian. It was only actually later when I started dating a Canadian and we started throwing Canadian Thanksgiving parties and putting together Canadian soundtracks.
Yeah, because it's different dates, right?
Then that you're like, that's so. I think probably the earliest. Thinking of, so I missed all, like, none of the, I had to be educated later on about all the kind of Canadian rock stuff. Like a lot of that didn't come through at all. I had no idea what the Tragically Hip were, at all. Basically until I moved to Canada.
I was actually going to ask a question, and I don't want it to make it seem like I'm ignorant to the point where I feel like you've lived on the moon, or it's like you wouldn't have known all this stuff. I'm more interested about, like, how much gets over there, you know what I mean? That we think that is just everyday life to us, like the hip. I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Like the hip to us is part of our culture, you know what I mean? Like everyone, whether you're a fan or whether you're not a fan, if you're a Canadian, you know who the hip is.
Yeah.
And you respect the hip for what it is, even if you don't like the music. You know what I mean?
No.
But that's us, and I was just wondering stuff like that. It's like huge here, lifestyle, and over there, you're just like, I don't even know what that is.
No, I think we get the hits, but then there's less oh wow, like this person's massive and they're Canadian. I mean, the really obvious one growing up was Shania Twain. But I think I'm going to obviously speak on behalf of my whole country. But kind of prevailing is, it's a North American artist. Like actually, not necessarily the awareness that this person's Canadian.
Not from you didn't know she was from Timmins.
Timmins was not on the map in the UK.
Well, shit.
Yeah,
no,
I know.
It's not really on the map. It's not really on the map here either. You blink, you miss it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. That's very interesting too, because I don't know. Even in Canada though, there's certain bands in America. Like now that the internet's there and everything is so unbelievably accessible, like if you sat at home with your Spotify on or YouTube or something like that, you could just probably scroll all day and never go through like the same band twice. Like there's so much out there. And I think we're really lucky. When I was younger, I used to have to. You said you'd go to the library. We had like fanzines that would come in, like Maximum Rock and Roll and stuff like that. And we had a record store called St. James Stereo, and it was in the far end of the town, in Thunder Bay, and it was just a seedy little. It was awesome when I remember it. Seedy little record store, and they had like stacks of Maximum Rock and Rolls. This big thick fanzine, and it was all black and white like newspaper, and they had a section of like reviews, like record reviews, and I was like a huge punk kid. I loved punk rock music and skate punk and stuff, and you couldn't get anything at like, I don't know, whatever record stores they had. All they sold, it was like Guns N' Roses and, you know, like the big bands and that. So we used to look through that and order it, and then you'd ask the guy like, can we order this? And he'd have like an ordering form. He'd be like, yeah, and then we'd have to wait. Like, there was never a time. It was like, yeah, that'll be here in like maybe 3 weeks. And you go back in 3 weeks and you'd call or something like that and be like, nothing yet. He'd look in his inbox or something. It wasn't like Amazon today where it's on your step the next day, right? It was like ordered from God knows where.
Yeah.
So it was super hard to get stuff, but I don't know. It's amazing. If you want to find music, you will take the time and you will go down those rabbit holes and you will find it one way or another. Kids today, they don't know how good they have it, you know? And it's a shame. Back in the day, we used to scratch and kick and claw just to get like a cassette, just so we could have it. Nowadays, people put on a song, they listen to the first 30 seconds, and because there's just so many, they go, They don't even listen to the song. They don't even listen to the full song. I think that's sad.
Yeah, it's again, the people recognize the good stuff, and like it's just about getting people in front of it. Actually, I talk about this a lot in the context of Ottawa gigs. Is that I don't like the Ottawa music scene doesn't have a product problem. Like, the product is good. Like, people are playing great shows, they're making great art. It has a marketing problem, like a lot of the time, in terms of people being aware of these things and knowing they're there, so they can go to them. And enjoy them.
That's fair. Like I said, I've been involved in the music scene for a long time, and it's in a very much of a peak right now for the Ottawa music scene. So people are going to shows, and it's live music is very, very hot right now. But there's times when it isn't.
Yeah. And
I always tell artists that come on, the bands that are sitting in that beautiful pocket of just like every show they play, they're playing like, it's unheard of really in local music to play your own town maybe like 3 times a month and just always sell it out. It's not, from my experience, and you can believe me if you want or not, it's not overly sustainable. Like, eventually it's going to dwindle, people's lives change, people's interests change, and eventually it's going to be like pulling teeth, and that's the way I've seen it. I've seen it both ways. So it's lucky that everybody really wants to see live music right now, and maybe this will help. My point, going back full circle, I kind of went around there, was marketing. Yes, this is here now, which is super helpful, but sometimes it's hard just to get people out even when they know the shows are there.
Yeah,
that's what I mean by pulling teeth. Like, sometimes I've been in gigs where the place is just a good night, you know, and some nights everything's in place like it was before. 10 people show up.
Yeah,
you know, like, what's going on? Is it like that in Toronto? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, is it like that in New York City? I don't know. So I can't say Ottawa has like a attendance problem, because I can't compare. I have nothing really to compare it to on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
What do you think? Being more attached more to gigs, more to like the actual shows. How many shows do you actually attend, say, in a month?
I'd say, not as many as I want, to be totally honest. I probably go to like a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not because, you don't want to. It's just the rest of,
hey,
the life gets in the way.
I'm lucky to do that sometimes. And a lot of the reasons, like I was saying, touching on earlier with Ego and Vice, one of the reasons I do the podcast is that I can still kind of stay my ear to the ground, stay kind of within the conversation. You know, I feel like if I have a band down here and I talk to them for an hour, I'll go see their show. But if I don't, at least I supported them somehow. You know what I mean? And I think there's more to supporting a band than just catching an average show. It's awesome to see them live. You'll have a great time, but there's other ways to help out and support as well.
Yeah.
I.e. Ottawa Gigs, which is amazing for the bands themselves, because more people, it's more visible to more people, it's easy to find, and that may bring more people out. Or even just seeing the name or an advertisement or a poster. I love show posters. I always make show posters. You see that and it's just like, oh, what's that band? It makes you curious, right? So
yeah, I think that's the kind of ethos behind the site, is that I think, while big music nerds will use the site, and it's great that it's there for them, and I built it for me, and I would put myself in that category. Actually, I think the folks it really, really helps are those who, in that moment, think, actually, like, I've got a free night on Thursday, like, I wonder what's on.
Yep.
And if at that point in time they don't get an answer to that question, there's so many other things they could be doing. Like, as you said, like, they might just stay in, watch Netflix, have an early night,
It's
whatever it might be, might go to the movies, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's those folks that in that moment, it hopefully gives them like the resource they're looking for, not just to be like, oh, there's like all the shows here, I can find them, but when they get there, like, actually, I just like jazz. Yeah. And that they can quickly and easily like find the thing they actually want to go to. I think it's those folks that I think that the site will potentially be kind of most useful for in getting them out to things that they otherwise might not have seen.
Agree.
Yeah,
completely agree.
Yeah. Can I just because you'll like this, like, there's not talking about people kind of liking the good stuff. I went to see this was a little while ago now, but Lyle Ojic, the bluesman, played a show, and it looked like I think some school kids have been brought along, like as a let's see what's going on in the local scene.
Was it like an all ages gig, or?
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
it was
good.
one of the things at the NAC, and
I see.
And you could see, like, these were kids who maybe didn't go see a lot of live music, probably also didn't see a lot of blues, like given the genre.
Not a lot of heartbreak in children.
Yeah, exactly, which is probably for the good. But actually,
lost love, I should
there
say.
were like 2 or 3 of them just like couldn't take their eyes off him.
Yeah.
Like they would just, and like one turned, the other was like just kind of whispered like to the other one, like as if in a kind of way like, maybe I shouldn't feel this, but like it's like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just
that might be it for those kids. Like that got them. Like they may chase that their entire lives. Follow music.
Yep.
Love music. You know what I mean? You never know until you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just kind of. Yeah. That's cool, man. Very interesting story. So when you're not working on Ottawa gigs, back in Manchester, all that music, all that history, all that music around you, did you ever pick up an instrument? Did you ever play in bands? Did you ever write songs? Like, whoa. Do you want to do that? I don't even know.
Yeah, that definitely happened. I took the wrong path a little bit. It was kind of interesting. I had piano lessons from like a pretty early age. My mum played, and I've got 3 sisters as well. And she was like, oh, like I thought it'd be interesting to give us all a shot at trying that. And I just struggled with it. Like pretty much every lesson felt like a chore. Practice was fine, but it was a real grind. And then, but sat in the house for ages had been like an old Yamaha acoustic guitar, which was my dad's, but he rarely played. Yeah. And one day it's like, pick this up and had it, again, coming from listening to all this guitar music, it's actually be fun to try and play this stuff. And then it sounds really obvious, but the world of guitar tabs versus
sheet music
versus
versus
sheet music.
Yeah.
And from going from an instrument which always felt like a struggle to then picking up a guitar, and I would play for 4 or 5 hours a day. Right. Kind of. It was, yeah.
I actually have kind of a similar story. When I was a kid, before I did anything, I loved music, but my mom put me in piano lessons, and I didn't like it. I was just like, I don't want to do this, because it wasn't outside playing in the dirt. You know what I mean? It was like, and I remember I had recitals, and it was like being in school, because I was told, do this, you gotta do this. Oh, you're doing that wrong, whatever. So I whined and cried, and I think I took piano for maybe a year or 2, and then my mom finally let me quit. I always say now, if I would give up everything I know on guitar right now just to go back in time and tell my mom, don't make me quit. Because if I would have kept up with piano till now, I think piano is the most beautiful instrument in the world.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And I've always wanted to just sit there and write a song on piano. You know what I mean? But I can, but it's like, but it's just, but anyway, it's the things. But I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Do you know what I mean? So here we are.
You can't like push in. And as you said, like so many of the songs which I listen to now and which I love all have like a lot of them are arranged on piano and have gorgeous piano parts.
Yeah, like you could you could still play guitar and stuff, but then one day you could just be like, I can. Just it's so beautiful. It's so hauntingly beautiful. Like pianos, I guess I've actually looked into lessons. I have a friend who teaches music, and I just we started with. There's only so many hours in the day, right? It's just like where am I going to find time? And
so no, it was guitar, and then it was saving up to buy your first guitar, and endless hours inflicting my Bad Muse cover and Arctic Monkeys covers on people. Sure. And then went off to university, started a band there, but
what were they called?
That we never even got around to having a name.
The band with no name.
Yeah, we just practiced for a few months. But then other demands of kind of life and work and stuff kind of took over, and it's sat there ever since. But I still adore it. Like every time I pick it up, like I love it, and there's still very much the aspiration to get back there.
Just like those kids at the blues show, you know what I mean? Once it gets in you, it stays in you, and it's got to come out in one way or another. Whether you listen to music, whether you write music, whether you just dream about it, whether you make websites or podcasts or play in a band, you know what I mean? Music is a wonderful thing. And if it's in your life, I think you're genuinely, if you're a music lover and you participate, somehow you're a creative person, I think genuinely you're more, you're like happier person.
Comes to find my face is in your palms.
So the future of Ottawagigs.ca, where do you see it going? What would you love to see it? Where would you like it to go? Where would you like to see it in 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's really like awareness and raising the profile of it is the name of the game. You know, I still meet so many music fans in town who are like, where has this thing been my whole life? Like I'm exactly the kind of person who should be using this, and I don't know about it.
Yep.
And that's on me. You know, I could spend more time marketing it, but I have the day job, and but now I know that the product is good. Like, it's really working. You see it in both, like, the feedback that I get from people about the site. You see it in the stats in terms of the traffic and the people and the way people are using it. So at the moment, it's me thinking about ways to increase the audience for it, which the main one I don't do a ton of at the moment on that front is social media. So I experimented a little bit with Instagram early last year. I think now's the time to go back to that and really put a bit more effort into that side of things.
Prior to having anyone on the podcast, I always say, like I said earlier, I'm not a professional journalist, but I always try and do a little bit of a deep dive into the internet to try and have something to talk about.
Yeah.
You're like a ghost.
Yeah.
Other than the site itself, it was really hard to find anything. So.
Yeah. It's I think it's because I'm still, to be honest, working out a little bit how I combine the Ottawa Gigs music profile
with your personal,
with my kind of professional profile. I mean, I'm a startup founder. I used to work in cybersecurity. I moved to Canada and I started an HR tech company, and now I'm trying to start a climate tech company. You know, which is all really exciting, and it's something I would also talk for hours about, but it's not. Doesn't sit alongside the live music stuff.
I totally have the same problem because all my social media is the podcast. Like, everything's the podcast. Like, I don't know how to I have an actual Instagram page of just me, but I never put anything on it because it's almost like I don't want people, how do I tell people what I do? Do you want to see me riding my bike? No, you just want to kind of focus on, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know how to do it either, really, to be honest with you.
So it's trying to work on that, improve, and also because I think, we have the website, which gets a bunch of traffic, you have the newsletter, but then Instagram is a whole other audience, which, we want to bring onto the platform and make them aware of it.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is also just some word of mouth and starting to work much more closely with venues and making sure that the site works for them. There are some folks who I've met already, and I'm working with. But others, you really notice it in the last couple of months as the site's got more popular. You start to get those emails from folks saying, "Hey,
sure.
I'd love to get, make sure my shows are on here." And then my response to that is always "Great, let's meet, let's talk about how you currently, where you upload your shows, how you're doing it, and let's try and make that most effective and and make it work most for you." So yeah, I've got a bit of a project on at the moment to try and kind of meet every venue in town that we cover in the next couple of months, because cool. there's still a few who I haven't managed to meet. So yeah, I think, and through a combination of that, hopefully that'll drive the numbers kind of ever upwards, and we'll get a few more folks to shows in Ottawa. That's the plan.
Well, I think it's an amazing tool. I think it's an amazing website. I've seen, like you said, I've seen them come and go kind of, but nothing as, I don't use the word simple, but easy to use, just straightforward. It's you can't screw it up. It's you go on there, you'll find what you're looking for, no problem.
Thanks, man.
So congratulations on your success so far with it, and it sounds like people are really, really using it and liking it, and I hope that grows. And with the podcast, whatever reach I have, I will do my best to always remind people, if you want to see that gig, Ottawagigs.ca.
Awesome. And all this, that helps an enormous amount. There are, again, as I meet with people in the community, what's been awesome is just the amount of support and goodwill from folks like you. The folks at Mic have been awesome, in terms of providing feedback on the site and promoting it to others. So the more the merrier.
I think we all got to help each other out, because I think we're all in it for the same cause, right? So yeah, let's do it. That sounds great. Is there any shout outs to any other than the bots?
No, to be honest, it's the really basic one is just to say thanks to all the venues and artists. I'm just provide this little layer on top, which hopefully helps. But really, all the work is being done by those people putting the art out into the world and putting the shows on. I know it's not the easiest gig to be in, and but it's what makes us all incredibly happy. So yeah.
Well said. Okay, I have a game. It's called 13 Questions with the Band
Okay,
or artists. 13 questions. Would you like to play?
13 of them.
Well,
Yeah, I'm for it.
it's
Sure.
actually, I have 13 questions. I don't actually ask 13 questions. I ask from the 13 questions.
Okay.
It's in the jingle.
Time for 13 questions with the band. Yes, this segment's back again. It's called 13 questions, but I only asked 6, maybe 5.
Okay, we're back. This is 13 Questions with Will Stockdale from Ottawagigs.ca. First question. I think you may have answered this question already. What was your first record CD tape that you purchased with your own money?
Yeah, that is Americana by The Offspring.
Ah, shit. See? Now you have to, if you listened to the first part of the episode and you got this far, you already knew that. Not bad. Okay, what was the first concert you ever saw live?
Oh, that is a really good question, because I think it speaks to... Because I'm still, like, a real sucker for a melody and a hook. Like, still listen to a lot of pop. The first concert I ever saw live was Britney Spears.
I love watching her Instagram where she just dances. Have you seen it?
No.
No? Oh, man. I think she might be on drugs, but it doesn't matter because it's still Britney, and I watch it, and I'm like, oh, Britney.
Yeah. No, she's incredible.
Yeah, good for her. She can't sing very good, but did it matter? I don't think so. She can't sing no good. No, she did fine. Okay, next question. What did you listen to on your way here to Southwood Studio?
Did I listen to my way here? I listened to the new Julie album.
Julie.
Yeah. You listen to Julie at all? Very cool, like, kind of getting a lot of buzz around them at the moment. I think they've got a show in Toronto coming up later in October. Kind of sonic youthy, post-punky type stuff, but great band.
There's a good question. You brought up, I know this is not in the 13 questions, but your first record was The Offspring. You like kind of sonic youthy stuff. What are you like the full palette of music? You like everything, or do you have a certain style of music that you kind of gravitate to always?
Yeah, I think I'm a mixture of the two. I definitely, like, if I was looking like at all the records that I love the most, like in any given year, probably most of them will be guitar rock kind of based. At the same time, like, I listen to everything. So like,
if you had a time machine and you could go back to any musical event in history that you weren't at, what would it be?
It's a cliche, but it probably would be Hendrix at Woodstock. Like, it's that kind of, yeah. I think that kind of era is something that we don't really have at all now. You could pick some of the gigs which are more recent. Sure. I feel I might have a feel for. I think that would be pretty otherworldly.
There's actually a top 3 to that question after 8 years.
Okay.
That is in the top 3. The Hendrix at Woodstock.
Yeah.
The other one is the first Lollapalooza.
Okay.
From like the 90s with like Jane's Addiction, Henry Rollins, that kind of shit. And you know what the number one answer is? Woodstock 99.
Limp Bizkit at Woodstock 99.
The fucking crazy break stuff. Give me something to break. Everybody wants to go do that, I guess. Go swim in the poo mud.
They're having a real moment again.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Are you going to go see Oasis in Toronto? Little inside joke from off mic when we first sit down, but are you?
Yeah. I mean, if someone gave a ticket to me, would I turn it away? Probably not, but that's not what's going to happen. Someone's going to offer me a ticket for $500. Is what's going to happen.
They'll go that low?
They'll go that low? Yeah, I know. It's a charity. They're a charity.
I don't know, man.
We'll see. We'll see how they get on. Like, I wish them all the best with it. I'm kind of interested. I saw them on the tour they called it a day, like in 2009, and it was not good. They were very much kind of phoning it in, and were upstaged by kind of support acts on the bill, to my mind. So, but I think they'll be coming out swinging. I think they'll be pretty good, actually. Yeah.
In the music community, you meet a lot of people with the common interests, and most people are pretty cool. So it's been a pleasure meeting you. And
likewise.
I will do what I can to help out the site, because I think it's an amazing idea. I think you're doing an awesome job. And keep in touch, and maybe we can do this again down the road.
Sounds good. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks again.
Good.
Once I start to drive by, I know I'm never gonna stop. And once I set my sights on you, I know there will be blood. And once I start to bleed from an axe to the head, the shocks are gonna come for every drop of this lead. Once I start loving you, well, that's bad news. Throw your money out the window. Your face lit up from that fireside glow. Tongue so black, speak your evil. 'Cause our sin girl is coming for you. Our sin girl is coming for you. Once I start to drive by, I know the way to your house. And let me tell you, if I was you, I'd stay inside my car. And once I pull this axe out of my head, I'm gonna lead you right back to your shed. We both know this violent delights have violent end. Throw your money out the window. Your face lit up from that fireside glow. Tongue so black, speak your evil. 'Cause our sin girl is coming for you. Our sin girl is coming for you. Light you on fire. Light you on fire. Light you on fire. I'm gonna light you on fire. Throw your money out the window. Your face lit up from that fireside glow. Tongue so black, speak your evil. 'Cause our sin girl is coming for you. Our sin girl is coming for you.
All right, that is the end of episode 144. I'd like to thank Will Stockdale for being on Ego and Vice, coming down to Southwood Studio and having a chat. Check out that site. Use that site as a tool in your everyday, because it is super helpful, and he puts a ton of work and heart into it. It is Ottawagigs.ca. If you're looking for something to do, if you're looking for something to see, if you're searching for a band, you're just searching for a night out, Ottawagigs.ca is the place to go. If you want to get a hold of me, you can always reach me at egoandvice@gmail.com. If you want to listen to the podcast, just search egoandvicepodcast.com. I'm everywhere. Or you can go to egoandvicepodcast.com. Did I just say that? Anyway, it's the end of an episode. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. egoandvicepodcast.com. It is my home base. It is my fortress of solitude, my HQ. Everything you need is there. Every link you need is there. Leave a review. That's nice. Anyway, yeah. See you next week.
You've got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker.